Dear students, I am Shobha Bansiwal, Assistant Professor English, SPC Government College, Bhim. Today I am going to explain the poem When the Assault Was Intended to the City by John Milton. It is in BA first year, English Literature, paper first. This poem was written in the year 1642, most probably on 12 November 1642. Milton was a parliamentarian and in the years 1642 there occurred civil war, and on 12th November 1642 it was expected that the royalist forces would attack the city of London. So Milton, who was a parliamentarian, was scared. He thought that the royalist forces will attack his home, and they will attack him also. So there was a general fear in the people of London because of the impending attack of royalist forces. In this poem, Milton addresses some imaginary colonel or captain of royalist force, and he addresses him and he requests him to save him from he requests colonel or captain to spare him from attack, and Milton promises to him to this colonel to reward him with some immortality, which he will it means he will write poems in praise of that colonel who will spare him, and by writing his poems he will make him immortal. This poem is a Miltonic sonnet. In the first two stanza quatrains, which are octave part of the poem, Milton requests the colonel, the imaginary colonel, to spare him from the attack, and he promises to make him famous or immortal by his with the help of his poems. And in the sestet part, he gives example of two great warriors who saved poets from attacking, and due to their honor for the poets and poetry. So in this poem, let me explain you this poem line to line. Captain or colonel or knight in arms, whose chance on these defenseless doors may seize, if deed of honor did thee ever please, guard them and him within protect from harms. In this poem, we have to imagine that Milton is addressing to some in this poem Milton is addressing to some imaginary colonel or captain who might attack his home. He addresses this colonel and says to him that if this colonel has a chance to seize the doors of his house, he should guard the doors of Milton, and this colonel should spare or protect Milton from harms. If this colonel ever has respect for poets and need of honors, then he should spare the poet who is Milton and his home. He can requite thee, for he knows the charms that call fame on such gentle acts as these, and he can spread thy name over lands and seas. Whatever climb the sun's bright circle warms. In this second quatrain, which is the second part of the octave, Milton promises this colonel to reward him with some fame. The poet says that uh, he knows some charms, and with these charms he make this colonel famous for his gentle acts, and he can spread his name over lands and seas, means he can make him famous all over the world. uh, Wherever the bright circle of sun shines, it means Milton wants to say that if this colonel saves him and protects him from any harm, then he will reward him with fame by writing poetry, and the poetry written in the praise of this colonel will make him famous all over the world. In the sestet part, which is the last 6 lines of this poem, um, which comprises of 2 tercets. Tercets means a set of 3 lines is called tercet, and in a sestet there are 2 tercets. So in the uh, sestet, Milton says, "Lift not thy spear against the muses' bower. The great Emathian conqueror bid spare. The house of Pindarus, when temple and tower went to the ground, and the repeated air of sad Electra's poet had the power to save the Athenian walls from ruin bare." In this sestet part, Milton gives example of two great warrior who protected poets due to their respect for poets and poetry. Um, the the poet says that, "Lift not thy spear against the muses' bower. The great Emathian conqueror bid spare the house of Pindarus when temple and towers went to the ground." Here the poet says, the poet requests the colonel or captain or knight. The poet says to him that he should not lift his spear against the poet or Milton. He says that in history, the great Emathian conqueror, that is the Alexander Great, uh, spared the house of the great Greek poet Pindar or Pindarus when he sacked the city of uh, Deep. uh, he he ordered his soldiers not to attack the house of Pindarus. In the next example, the poet says that the repeated air of sad Electra's poet had the power to save the Athenian walls from ruin bare. The second example is of the Spartan leader Lysander, who attacked the city of Athens, but when he heard some rhymes from Euripides' tragedy Electra. He ordered not to attack this city, and he's, he uh, he changed his mind to ruin this city. So in this estate part, the poet gives example of two great leaders who saved poets um, due to their respect for poets and poetry. This poem is a sonnet, and it is a Petrarchan sonnet, which is also called a Miltonic or classical sonnet. It is called Miltonic sonnet because Milton used this form in his sonnets. So it became famous with his name is as Miltonic sonnet. In Miltonic sonnets, there are two parts. The first 8 lines is octave part, and the last 6 lines are a sestate part. Uh, the octave part comprises of 2 quatrains, and sestate part comprises of 2 tercets. The rhyme scheme of Petrarchan sonnet is ABA, ABBA, ABBA, and the rhyme scheme of sestate part is different, like CDC, DCD, or CDE, CDE. Uh, in uh, in a Miltonic sonnet, in this sonnet, there is a pause after the first quatrain, and then comes the climax after the second quatrain. Means after the end of the octave part, there is a big pause, um, and there and in sestate part he changes uh, his idea or thought. So this is Milton's poem When the Salt Was Intended to the City. Thank you.